Hi guys, welcome back to the channel, and today's episode is going to be about a vlog about my radiology journey in the UAE, where I plan to give you some tips and tricks and basically an outline about how I started my journey from India till the UAE. So let's get started. So firstly, I started my DNB in radiology after my MBBS. That was in 2009 in India, and I finished my DNB in 2012. After finishing my DNB exam, I worked in few private and government hospitals in India for a period of 3 years to gain experience in cross-section, CT and MRI and ultrasound. The government hospitals in India definitely helped in sort of brushing up the knowledge and seeing a variety of cases which we normally don't see in the private setup. So while I was working in the private setup, I came across the European Diploma of Radiology, which was suggested to me by one of my senior colleagues that I should take the exam. And I researched about it, and it required about 5 years of radiology practice to enroll for the exam, and I had just about finished 5 years during that period of time. So I planned to enroll for that exam, and I finished the paperwork, and I came to Dubai to give the exam, because the exam was to be held along with the annual radiology conference. This was in the year 2014 in the month of September. So when I came and gave the exam, I was really impressed by the infrastructure of Dubai as well as the healthcare facilities in the Emirate of Dubai. And I then decided it would be fantastic to work in such a lovely, beautiful country with cutting edge infrastructure in healthcare. So as I started researching about it, I came to know that there is the exam of the Dubai Health Authority which has to be passed to practice as a radiologist in the UAE. There are two licenses which are given to radiologists. One is the specialist's license, and one is a consultant license. We will talk more about this in subsequent videos. So as an DNB radiology trainee with 3 years of experience, at that point in time there was the specialist radiologist license which was available that I could opt for. At that point of time there was a minimum experience of around 3 to 5 years which was required to get a specialist license. But before that, if you wanted to work, then it would be a specialist under supervision license. Now that has been discontinued since 2015, I suppose, and now there are only specialist and consultant licenses which are issued. So I researched about it, and I came to know that there are various paperwork formalities which need to be done. Like for example, there is a thing called as data flow, where they will take all your documents and they will verify it at source. Your DNB degree, your MBBS degree, your experience certificate letters, they all have to be verified so that they know that you are the genuine person and you have all those experiences which you have mentioned in your CV. So started the procedure for that, and then I came back again to Dubai to give the DHA exam. So the DHA exam at that point in time I gave in November 2014 was a Viva exam. So there was a Viva, like how a DNB Viva is held in India, where you are shown cases and you're supposed to start speaking about those cases and sort of give your understanding about what the case is, describe it, give the diagnosis or a differential diagnosis and possible management plan. So that was a Viva which went for about 20 minutes. So that exam was like for around 20 minutes, and I did well in that exam because I was preparing for the EDIR exam for good 6 months, and I would like to do another video where I will sort of detail my experiences of taking the EDIR exam. So as I gave the Viva exam for DHA, I was pretty confident that I'm going to do fairly well and I might have a chance of passing the exam. Then I went to some of the hospitals in the UAE and started applying for or started looking out for opportunities to work here. So as I gave the exam, I started looking for opportunities to work in the UAE, and I applied in some hospitals, some clinics. I luckily got through in one clinic where there was only ultrasound and X-ray facilities. So nevertheless, I had to get my foot through the door, so I opted for that offer and I came to the UAE in March 2015. I worked in that clinic for 2 years. There was ultrasound and there was X-ray, and it really helped me because my ultrasound skills really became very, very good, because you had no other modality to sort of support your diagnosis like a CT scan or an MRI. You had to sort of come up with a diagnosis to help the clinicians, and in certain cases, of course, you would need to advise a CT and MRI where the patient would go to some other clinic or the hospitals for the subsequent investigations. So that really helped me in gaining local UAE experience and seeing how the healthcare facility works here. And my colleagues were very fantastic. They were really good and supportive, both in radiology as well as my clinical colleagues. After I finished my 2 years in my first job, I changed my job. Here usually the contracts last for a period of 2 years, and I changed my job and I got an opportunity to work in again another clinic. And this clinic also had a facility for reporting CT and MRI scans. So I started working there, and my bulk of the work, like 80% of the work, was still doing ultrasound and X-ray reporting. But I used to get, say, around 15 to 20% of CT and MRI work, maybe twice or thrice a week, which was not bad because there was something I could start doing, because I was trained in CT and MRI throughout my residency. So not doing that for the first 2 years was a little disheartening, but then eventually I thought if I just keep plugging at it, it definitely might come along my way. Then after working there for around 18 months or so, I got an opportunity to work in a hospital which is connected with the group, and it is a fantastic place to work, 100-bedded hospital, and I continue to work there, and I've just finished 2 years working in the hospital, and it's been a great journey. So I would just like to tell you, when you start in the UAE, you may not get the job which you like, or the place which you like, or the salary which you like. But if you really want to be here in the long term, then you might have to take sort of some steps to reach that level. So you might have to start working in a clinic. If you're lucky, you might get into a hospital setup directly, and that's great. But in my case, I got through a clinic and then I went to the hospital. So that was good. That helped me in my ultrasound skills even till date. Secondly, if you have some qualifications like an FRCR, that really helps in sort of moving up the ladder quickly. Any fellowship which you might have had taken, or you might be sort of good at in any one particular modality, also really helps in getting good jobs here. The market here is definitely good. The pay is really good, and there are lots of hospitals and clinics which are coming up in Dubai as well as in the other Emirates of Dubai, in other Emirates of UAE. So you should definitely look out for opportunities here. As far as the current guidelines go, I am going to make another video on that, but I think the DHA exam is now an online exam, which is a Viva based which is not a Viva based exam. It's an MCQ exam, and it can be taken from a Prometric center even in India, I suppose. And the paperwork regulations still are in place, like you need to get your data flow, and then you will be given sort of a license or initial approval, and then you have to apply to the hospital and then get through the process for applying your license. So I wish you all the best, and hopefully this might have helped you a little bit in your journey, and let's see you in the next video.